Hello, Namaskar. My name is Poonam Gulalia, and today's video we will be discussing program planning and the skills required. So the topic involves our discussion on planning a program, whether it's in an institutional setting or it's in a community setting, and what skills are required for us as student social workers. So the first thing which is essential to understand is that why do we need to organize a program at all, and what program do we think we are going to organize. Sometimes as student social workers we think that because we have been given a mandate we should just go head on and organize any program in the community. So sometimes students say that I decided that I am going to organize the adolescent group and sensitize them to the need for sanitation in an urban slum. Some others come ahead and say that I think that it is important to discuss gender issues and democratic rights. Some others might come ahead and say that these institutional setting where I have been placed for field work requires that I organize all the boys in the aftercare home and discuss with them the need for collaboration. Now when we get to hear some such thoughts, remarks or ideas, we realize the need to discuss the need for program planning in the context in which we are placed for field work. Also in terms of the requirements which the organization may have in terms of assessment of the need. So need assessment becomes an essential component of planning a program in the field. It is also essential to add here that there could be felt needs and there could be perceived needs, and that is why at the outset one is flagging some examples which come to light of students having engaged with planning for conducting programs in their fieldwork journey. So now it's important for us to discuss that program planning is a process by virtue of which a program is definitely conceived and brought to fruition, but it entails few steps. The first step is identification of a need or a problem or a concern. The second, of course, is selection of desired outcomes. What is the purpose with which we are organizing the program? The third definitely is assessment of available resources, whether it's manpower or any other resource required, material or non-material, for conducting the program. The fourth essentially is implementation of the said program, and last but not the least is evaluation of the program which has been conducted by us. So these 5 steps are very important in planning a program. As I mentioned to you, when we say identification of a problem, it means or a need or a concern. It's not necessary that we have to identify a problem means we have to go and look out for any problems. It is a need or a concern which either may be flagged by people, by the client group, by the client themselves, by the institution or the people who are housed in that institution, or by any community people who might approach us with a need or a concern. It could also be that organizations have already identified the need before our arrival as student social workers in the field, and they present us with that need or the concern, and then we are asked to organize the plan or the program. So identification of a problem needs to be understood in this context. It also needs to be understood that since the context will vary, the way we will go about it, our planning, our assessment, our implementation and our evaluation process will also vary. So if we take the example of conducting a recreational program for elders in a daycare center where elderly come, our sensitivity, our understanding of the needs of the elderly, the fact that their mobility or their ability or their disability may be varied, the fact that our understanding of the elderly as a sector or as a section of society may be limited. It's possible that the space which is being provided to us could be out in the park or the outhouse or an extension of a room of where the daycare center is run. There could be many aspects which we need to keep in mind when we address a need which is identified to plan a program for one sector of society, that is the elderly in a given situation. It could also be that we are organizing this or planning this program for organizing a recreational program for the elderly, not being aware of the language or the dialect. We could be outsiders in that sense, and we may need the help of a translator, we may need the help of body language, we may need to build a rapport with the elderly before we undertake this program in the field. So when we say identification or selection of the desired outcomes with which we are planning the program or availability of resources, we need to keep many factors in mind in working around these aspects of program planning. Why is one stating examples from the field? So that as student social workers, you begin to appreciate the context where you are in, and that differentiate between your planning a program in a particular context for a particular section of society on a particular day in a given situation from what another person might do. They might have to travel for field work to a remote location. So your planning will be different. It could be that you may be in a multidisciplinary situation where you may have to engage with a doctor, a nurse or a paraprofessional or availability of psychologist to probably undertake an eye checkup or a health camp on a Sunday morning. So what is the preparation you are going to do in advance, and what is the requirement from you in terms of the resources which you will tap? By using examples, we can make it more realistic and enable you to be realistic in the field when you go for field work. Having said that, one needs to state what are the principles related to program planning and the principles related to undertaking a program in the community or in an institution or in a setting which may be given to you. It could be a field action project in an extension center. It could be a field action project and you are organizing the program in an urban health center or a rural health center or a community center. So it will vary. Your planning process will vary. Your understanding of the situation will impact it. So the principles related to program planning are based on the analysis of the facts, as I have just mentioned to you. So I have stated some of the facts which could be necessary for you to keep in mind for planning a program. It is based on the needs and the interests of the target group or the beneficiaries or the client population. They are called by different names in different places. We need to define the objectives with which we are undertaking the program and the possible solutions which we are looking at. Is it going to be a one-time activity? Is it going to be an ongoing activity? Maybe a health camp is going to be organized once a month, right? Maybe a recreational activity is also going to be organized once in 2 weeks. So it depends on the kind of program which is being planned. Maybe we may be organizing a session for adolescent girls and boys in a community center, and a resource person is being called from another organization or from another setting who is going to engage with the adolescent boys and girls. It could also be that you as a student social worker are going to give inputs. So there could be different ways of going about it. It's possible that only one resource person is being called, but subsequently you are going to have a focus group discussion with the adolescent boys and girls in the group and engage with them. So organizing the focus group discussion would require you to list out the kind of questions which you would likely be asking. It's our responsibility to let them know in advance that we are going to be organizing a focus group discussion on this topic. It's also possible that you may be one of the two facilitators in the focus group discussion. It's also required that you might have to allocate someone to do the recording or the writing of the minutes of the focus group discussion. So many aspects are involved in terms of probably also taking consent of the group members in recording the procedure which is going to transpire. So planning a program entails perseverance, entails flexibility, entails being conscious and conscientious of what we are going to do. There could be continuity which is necessary to be taken care of. It's possible that earlier and already some exercise has been undertaken with this same set of adolescent boys and girls by paraprofessionals from that organization, and this is one of a series. So we need to know what were the topics which were discussed earlier, what were the responses, are we being repetitive, are we moving from simple to complex, are we doing it only as an exercise for our fieldwork learning, or is it going to enhance the capability of the group which is being part of our fieldwork journey. So since it involves local people, since it involves organizations, since we are looking at evaluating the impact of our program, we need to be mindful of these principles in planning a program in the field. One aspect which is necessary and which you might have learnt in the classroom is logical framework analysis. It's called log frame or a project framework. So what is a log frame which is very valuable for fieldwork and which we use for planning a program? It's a tool for planning and managing development projects. It presents us with information about key components of the project in a very clear, concise, systematic way, and it enables us to have an overview of the objectives, the activities and the resources which are available for our work. So what are the steps in using log frame analysis in the field? There are 5 major steps which you might have studied, but it's good to reinforce and probably then see how you're going to use it in the field. First step is situational analysis, assessing the situation in the community, collecting methods used to analyze the situation, helping identify opportunities and challenges. I have explained some of this to you in the examples which I have just given. The second, of course, is stakeholder analysis. Who are the stakeholders in the field? Are they individuals? Are they professionals? Are they paraprofessionals? Is it a mix? Are there organizations or agencies? So meeting with the stakeholders become important for us to understand their opinions. The third, of course, is problem analysis. There could be multiple factors which require us to understand the problem or the situation. We may be addressing only one component of recreation or cultural or sensitization through health camp, addressing the health needs of the one section of the community. But there could be multiple factors which need to be addressed. So how are we going to engage with the other needs and concerns in due course of time? Are we making a plan of work for the whole semester? Are we making a plan of work for the whole year? Is it in consonance with the objectives of the organization? Is it going with the flow of work of the organization? The organizations are already into working in the field, given their mandate. We have come into the picture at a particular time as a student social worker. So we are not going to begin from scratch. How are we going to synchronize our working in the field with that already which the organization is doing? So finally, the fourth step is objective analysis, identifying, specifying and balancing the objectives as I have just mentioned. And last but not the least is creating a strategy for implementing the program, learning from it, taking feedback from the stakeholders about how it has gone, evaluating our efforts, evaluating the impact of the program, evaluating the impact it has on the beneficiaries, and then planning ahead for the ongoing program. So this is not a one-time activity, it is being discussed and understood as an ongoing activity of planning program in our fieldwork journey. In the process, I am sure you appreciate that planning a program in the field, planning what projects are being undertaken by an organization require use of skills, and it's important to reinforce that interpersonal relationships, interpersonal skills, communication skills, networking skills, resource mobilization skills are all equally important in our fieldwork journey. Planning a program entails planning skills, organizing skills, working in team, the skills of working in a team. There could be people who have different thoughts about how the program will be conducted. You have come with one kind of thought after discussing with your supervisor, after discussing with your co-workers. But it is possible that someone in the team might say, I do not agree with the way you are planning the program. I think that this is the problems that you are going to face. These are the hurdles which we will encounter. We may not be able to reach the project set on time. We might need to stay a day in advance because the setting where we are organizing the program is a remote location. We might be tired if we reach early in the morning. They could also say that we need to garner the beneficiaries of the program. We need to go house to house to remind people that a health camp is being conducted on this particular day. They might be having other commitments, so they might be needing time to plan their families, the engagement which they have for housework. They might need to take a leave if they are daily wage workers. They might need to compensate for their work in the workspace. They might need to place their children either in a daycare center if it's available or with their neighbors, or they might need to bring their children along. So many things need to be kept in mind when we are looking from the beneficiary's point of view. So far we were only thinking from our point of view as a student social worker, that we have identified the need, the organization has given us the mandate, we are very happy to organize this program, but we also need to think from the beneficiary's point of view. It could also be that when we are planning a program, we might find that we might have to change the date or the venue, or the location. We might have to think differently. There could be many unforeseen circumstances which might arise. We might have to keep in mind, is it a government holiday? Is it an election day? Is it a day maybe soon after some unforeseen situation has happened in the community? Is it a day where community members are not going to be available? Is it a day where a demolition squad has come and they have had to migrate overnight to the nearby village? There could be many permutations and combinations which need to be kept in mind when planning a program. Why is one using these examples? So that we are better prepared when we decide to plan a program for field work, when we plan a program so that we are less disappointed, when we plan a program maybe according to our convenience, but we also need to keep in mind the convenience of the target population for whom we are undertaking this program. At this juncture, then it's necessary to state what is the project program planning matrix. It's called a planning matrix. What does the matrix say? 1. Who will benefit from the program? Why is the project or the program being carried out in the first place? Second, what is the project or the program expected to achieve? Right? Third, how is the program going to achieve its results? Fourth, what are the crucial factors to be kept in mind for the success of this program which I am going to organize? Fifth, what are the indicators of success? Are they quantitative? Are they qualitative? And what are the means of verification that we have achieved success in the first place? Sometimes students tend to think that when we talk of quantitative and qualitative aspects, they are only related to research. But one needs to understand that our fieldwork journey in the fieldwork place, theoretical components, research aspects, field-based learning, all integrate, all merge, all have their role to play, all are valuable in providing a space for learning. So when we think of a project or a program, we could also think that what are the research components that we have learnt in the classroom, or how is going to enable us to understand research better. We need to use these spaces for better understanding of different components of the social work curriculum. So I have mentioned that the objective indicators are the goal, the purpose, the output and the activities which we are going to be engaged with in the fieldwork program. And all these 4 components form part of the matrix for not only planning the program, undertaking it, evaluating it and using the feedback for our further learning, for planning the next program in a more efficient, objective and meaningful way, so that it's a win-win situation for both the student learner, the target population and the organization with whom we are collaborating. It's a win-win situation for the residential inmates, so to say, the residential people, the daycare center and those who are giving us the space to organize the program. It's a win-win situation for the community leaders who are enabling us, the community center which we might use for the program and the community life, so that communities can move from strength to strength. This is very essential. I will use this opportunity to just give one example of how a program was planned and how in my experience I have perceived it. There could be different thoughts on this small program which has become a large program over the years, but it will also give you an opportunity to reflect on what aspects can be kept in mind, how a pilot program initiated by a college or an institution with a very good intention has flowered into a meaningful program, which of the spaces were provided for learning and how we are using it as a case study in today's video. If you look at the website or you Google later, you might also have heard from your seniors, some of whom were engaged in this program, because the pilot program was conducted in 11 universities across the country. I am talking of National University Students Skill Development Program, which was initiated as a pilot project about 8 years ago in 11 universities, and there was a lot of thought and planning involved. What were the aspects, some of which I would like to highlight in this video? So one was an understanding of the need for skill building of youth across the country. The second, of course, was the availability of NSS students across colleges in the country to be part of this program. The third was the development of course material by faculty, by professionals, by colleagues on different foundation courses which were identified for learning. The fourth was delineating the administrative operating procedures for conducting this program. Sixth was attempt at digitization of the course curriculum. Seventh was creating teachers manual, pre-testing, conducting training of trainers, identifying voluntary teachers, finding funding sources, and finally aligning the program for impact. So these are 10 to 12 factors which were kept in mind in planning this program. And why is one enumerating on this? Because the learner objectives with which this program was devised, designed, planned, programmed and implemented was to foster socially conscientious students who will be able to develop skills, competencies and knowledge. A welfare orientation, a welfare approach was used. They would also be provided diplomas in specific competencies which were domain specific areas. It would enhance their skills for employability. That was the purpose, the learning objective with which this program was designed. So the skill component which I have been mentioning to you from the beginning and which would be required to be reinforced here for us as student learners from this case study is planning, understanding the components essential for planning a program, understanding the need for subject knowledge. I mentioned to you foundation courses and domain courses, finding out the universities and colleges who would like to participate in the program because it was a voluntary program. So identification of these colleges and the universities they are affiliated to, what support system would be required to conduct such a program, identifying the roles of the voluntary teachers, tapping the voluntary teachers, defining the learner objectives, discussing the learner objectives with the respective colleges and the student population who was going to be engaged in this program, because we have to transmit the objectives, transact the objectives in such a way that they lead to positive outcomes. One essential element in skill building in this process was how will it increase the employability and the livelihoods of the NSS students who are going to be engaged in this process, and enabling them to understand what are the foundation courses and what are the domain courses and how applicable they are in their respective locations. So all these become essential components of learning in this particular case study. So what were the domain courses, you may ask, and you may like to read up a little more subsequently or find out from your seniors who are engaged in this program currently. These domain courses, they were delineated as water sanitation and hygiene as one course, WASH. Second was agriculture extension services and entrepreneurship. Third was financial management and services. Fourth was construction management. Fifth was healthcare services. Sixth was catering to the service sector of hospitality and tourism. Seventh was food processing. And eighth was community organization and development practice, among others. These were the more popular ones which I have just mentioned to you. Why are we discussing this, and what kind of questions do you think arose in terms of undertaking the pilot program and subsequent to the pilot program, which colleges and universities were able to adapt and adopt this program? It relied a lot on networking and collaboration. It relied a lot on legwork and fieldwork. It relied a lot on resource mobilization and understanding of the program. But the questions, some of the questions which were asked, I would like to read out to you for you to understand program planning better. So some of the questions which were asked as frequently asked questions by the different stakeholders were as follows. What does National University Student Skill Development Program aim to do? How are the NUSSD curriculum developed? Who has been part of this process of developing the curriculum? Who is going to teach the curriculum which has been developed? Will NUSSD provide the teaching material and the student with the reading material for the said courses? How many students does the program plan to reach out to? Why are we engaging with NSS students in this program? Who are the participating universities and which are the participating colleges affiliated to these universities? How were these colleges selected and do they have the bandwidth to undertake this program? What is unique about the approach being undertaken in implementing NUSSD? What is the support system which NUSSD will be provided with to make it a sustainable program? And last but not the least, what is the current status of the NUSSD program? So these are some of the relevant frequently asked questions in planning this program, and this case study is being discussed with you to enable you to plan your program better, to look at the pro and cons of program planning, to understand the various stakeholders who could be involved in planning a program, to enable you to plan successful programs, to enable you to understand what are the indicators in planning and evaluating a program, and to enable you to find spaces for learning through program planning. In conclusion, one would like to say that we can use several case studies, several experiences. You can connect with the professionals in your organizations or your supervisors to understand program planning better. They will have many experiences which they can share with you from their own learning, which will enable you to understand and plan programs. You can undertake a short study, a small study as part of your research plan and integrate it with your fieldwork to plan a program. Whether you undertake a survey, a questionnaire, an interview, or conduct focus group discussions, use online spaces which we have learned in the past 2 years, use online and offline spaces as a combination, a hybrid mode to plan programs, use Google Forms. There are many ways which you can undertake in this journey. Is the situation in the field teaching you the necessary lessons for planning an effective program? And last but not the least, are we able to integrate our theoretical learning from the classrooms, from the different courses, and the practice component which we are learning from the field in program planning and implementation? Having said this, I really hope that this video will help you to plan better, to implement better, to understand the linkages between different components of the fieldwork curriculum, to be able to draw lessons from the theory classes and to create synergy between what you learn in different spaces. We wish you all the best, and we do hope that this video is helpful for your ongoing journey. Thank you so much.